Starting this podcast was an unexpected step of obedience of something that God has called me to do. Through this podcast, I will be interviewing ordinary people who have seen and experienced God move in extraordinary ways throughout their lives. I pray that this will build your faith and encourage you to testify of God's goodness in your everyday lives. Hey guys, welcome to the Testify of God's Goodness podcast. We're really excited to have you guys here with us. I'm here with Chris and Tony Baker. So we we're going to get into it, but went to school with your all's daughters, went to your all's church. It's amazing for quite a few years. And yeah, so we're really thankful for you guys and what you're doing in our community. So just tell us about yourselves a little bit. So your work or callings in your life, and then we talked a little bit how we know each other already.
Well, Chris calls me tri-vocational.
Okay.
I work a secular job 40 hours a week, regular. I'm a mechanic for a gas company.
Okay.
Columbia Gas Transmission, and then the church part-time. And then also we run a farm.
Yeah.
So we got sheep and chickens and all that. Small fry, but we run a small operation, just enough to keep taxes.
Yes. Yeah.
Make sure we sell farm sales.
So it's a busy life, but a very productive and very good.
That's awesome.
And then Chris is
Yes. And I am a piano teacher. So I've done that, I don't know how many years. It's probably been, at least 20 years.
That's
so
awesome.
I've had a lot of students through that career, but I enjoy it. I enjoy being able to teach, mainly so that churches will have a piano player, because so many of them do not have that anymore. It's part of our ministry. Yeah. And then I'm also a certified clinical master herbalist. So I give classes and try to talk to people about how to live healthy, and just talk to them about how everything points back to how God created it, and we're supposed to eat the way God created things.
Yes, I love that. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Listen, I took piano lessons as a kid until I got into like middle school sports and whatnot. But I always said like I'd love to get back into playing. I feel like it would just take a couple lessons to like jog my memory. So maybe one day
absolutely.
Like, slows down a little bit.
I teach adults as well as children. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. What's the youngest age you would say to start your kids?
I prefer that they be at least 6 years old. And I always tell them, you can say your alphabet, but can you say your alphabet backwards from G to A? And then they look at me. I said, well, when you do that, then we'll, talk about coming for lessons.
That's good. That's good advice. Very cool. Okay, so what part of your testimonies do you guys feel led to share today?
Well, we talked about that a little bit last night. I think the part that we want to share is how God sort of has worked through our lives that we plan things, but there's no direct intervention. And I think the part that we want to convey to people is that there's hope out there for people that seem like they never know what God's will is. Because we don't struggle with it. We just do what we do. But it always seems like God, He works in such a way that it works out.
Yeah.
And no matter what we do or what we pick or what we choose, because He gives us choices, is that somehow we always see His measure of His hand in it.
Yeah, I love it. Explain that way.
Yeah, because so many people struggle with, what's the will of God for my life? And I feel personally they waste a lot of time on it. We could be doing things, and God's going to bless what we do anyway.
Yeah.
And so pick something, go with it. And that's what we've done.
As long as it's for the glory of God.
For the glory of God.
Yeah.
And just go with it and do what you're naturally talented or whatever at. And have fun with it.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. So I've encouraged teens, especially because they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to get the wrong degree and all this stuff. Like I want to be in God's will, which is a great desire. But I'm like, God's will is for you to be in a relationship with Him.
Right.
Period. That is what we are created for. And then ties into everything you guys were just saying.
Right. Yeah. Windows and doors will be open, as the saying goes, and things will happen.
My favorite song is Michael W. Smith, one of my favorite songs, the old hymns, of course, but then Michael W. Smith, My Place in This World, and finding that, I think is what a lot of this is about. And it may change over time.
Yeah.
It changes, and things don't, it may not be what you used to do. It could be something different.
Absolutely. Yeah. I never would have predicted I'd be doing like 5-10 years from now. Like to think, I mean, we graduated high school 10 years ago. And if people would have told me I would have been doing this or like leading youth and women and stuff, like I would have been like, I think he got me confused with somebody else. But it's funny how he works, and it's amazing. It is just like taking one step of obedience for him at a time. And it's not that, like I said, you're called to one specific thing. It's just a lot of steps
If you'd
of
told us
obedience.
22 years ago we were moving to West Virginia, we'd have looked at you and said,
I don't think so.
Where are you guys from?
Well, he's from Page County.
Page County, Virginia.
Okay.
And I tell people I'm from the East Coast. Because my father was a minister, and so he ministered in Pennsylvania and Maryland and West Virginia and Virginia, and then of course when I married Tony, then we went to North Carolina because he was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
So yeah, and then we moved to Newmarket, Virginia.
Spent 13 years there.
13 years there. So,
wow. Yeah. So what are all the little things that you feel like God has called you to do throughout your testimonies, like throughout your life? Or I guess the bigger things that stand out. Obviously, there's a lot of little things.
First obvious was a ministry. I sort of defied God, if that's. I said I'll never do what my dad did.
Okay.
He was a part-time minister. Worked a full-time construction job. He was a carpenter, and saw the struggles that he went through at church and did whatever. And I said, I ain't never doing that.
Yeah.
Well, God has a sense of humor that sort of backhand you. It's a backhanded sense of what he does. So at her father's encouragement, after I got out of the Marine Corps, we started talking and spiritual growth, and we became deacons at our church. They actually, the church that we were attending wanted to bring deacons down to a younger level. So even in our 20s, we were chosen as part of that. And then I think our backgrounds, we were both preacher's kids. So, you know, preacher's kid married a preacher's kid. We always tell everybody the roughest go of it.
Yeah.
But I think her dad, Chester Fisher, and we sat down and we talked some, and we had a good relationship. And he said, you know, you really have some leadership qualities that could be, I think, useful in a church or whatever. And I didn't want to do it. So finally I conceded to the Church of the Brethren. At that time offered a 3-year reading course, which the American Baptist does too. They do. They call it Bridgewater College. So dedicated every Monday night for 3 years.
Wow.
In semester, you know, it was we didn't go in the summer, but all semesters, fall and spring. Every Monday night going to Bridgewater, taking seminary level classes and instructors and professors and different people, counselors.
And all this time thinking I'm
a lay speaker. This is enriching me for the future. Be a good lay minister.
Yeah.
And finally, when it came down to it, I went to go, every time you had to fill the paper out for the new class, you had to put lay ministry or path to ministry or, you know, just personal enrichment or whatever. I started out personal enrichment, checked the box, and did it that way. And then it moved to lay ministry. You know, Chester and I kept talking. And then I think it was pastoral care and counseling, or I forget which class it was. It was so many years ago. But one of the classes, I sat down and I went to go fill out the paper, and I checked the wrong box.
Yeah. Wouldn't God do it?
I checked for ministry, and that changed everything from there, because then it was a totally different gearing from the professors. They treated you differently, and I was like, what? All of a sudden I'm held more accountable. And the guy said, well, you put down that you were going ministry. And I said, no, I didn't. And he said, yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So it was sort of a surprise to me, but then I somewhat accepted it and said, okay, if this is it, I'm cool with that. I'm good. Let's just move on. And
that's really
so the rest of my classes then were all more geared towards the ministry, and eventually ended up ordination. And it's a long process. We don't have time to tell all the stories.
Yeah.
Eventually ended up ordination in Church of the Brethren. Served 12 years. We figured up 12 years in the Church of the Brethren, and moved up here, and sort of there was no openings or anything. So
started attending this church.
Yeah, just started attending here.
And they actually sent us a letter 1 year after we started attending and asking us whether we would consider being a ministry team.
Wow.
And then
that's awesome.
I was only preaching every other Sunday because I was working night shift at a plant in Winchester. And so they were good with that. So we did every other Sunday for several years. And then in that path also went before a board and got my ordination in American Baptist as well. They recognized what I did in the Church of the Brethren. It bled over because they have similar programs.
Right.
I ended up bleeding over, and I was able to get my
cool.
ordination here in the American Baptist. And we've been here for 22 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story. I hadn't heard it before. Anything else you guys want to share?
That's a pretty
okay.
brief synopsis.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so you guys sent me an outline of some things that you wanted to talk about. So one of those things was missions trips, which like that holds a special place in my heart as well, because that's where God like totally transformed my life. The one summer I was away, that's like when I was still going to your all's church.
Yep.
So just kind of got me away from everything that I knew, all of it, everybody that I knew.
Moved your comfort level.
Yes. And then the following summer, I went to, I accidentally said it on the one podcast, but it's Southeast Asia. And again, that was like even more of my comfort zone. And just being able to like lead others to Christ that hadn't heard about him at all. And we were able to get them Bibles in their actual language. And so it's incredible. And my heart is in it too. So what is your all's encouragement for somebody who's on edge about going on a missions trip?
We talked about that a little bit last night. I think you have to have a desire to go.
Yeah.
And I won't elaborate, but there's been a couple instances over the years, and I've not personally been involved in it, but I've been involved in teams and missions where people shouldn't have gone. And I think, financial support here at home is good. Prayer is good. Everything that we do here to support that. But you have to have a special burden or a calling to do it. Don't just up and say, I'm going on a mission trip just because everybody talks about how great it is.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to feel personally because it can be damaging. Yourself, you get into third world countries, you see things that are
some people
totally can't handle it, and it breaks them. So I think, the encouragement there would be to make sure that that's what you want to do and that's what God's calling you to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not for the faint. It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of stamina to do it.
Yeah.
I've been involved in missions. Our church, we supported missionaries from the time I was, in diapers.
Yeah.
So I knew about places like Erie and Jawa and Korea, and missionaries came to our church all the time and talked about it. And my grandparents were missionaries.
Wow.
They left after my aunt turned 18 and went to college. They left for the mission field, and they were dorm parents in Korea, and then went to South Africa.
Wow.
They were there until they retired, many years, ministering with the Indian population in South Africa.
Wow.
So Granddad was a preacher at a Indian church in South Africa, which sort of
that's
weird.
Neat.
But it was
so he had that influence with his own family.
Yeah.
And of course my father had started Fishers International Ministries, which did work down in Haiti, also down in Dominican Republic, and Tony was able to go with them on several trips. Dad had asked him for the very first time back in the
1989.
1989, yeah, I guess that was his first trip ever there. And Tony went to Dominican, he went to Haiti with my dad, and they were work oriented. They would build churches, drill water wells, cisterns, do those types of things. And they were always required to speak at the church too. Whenever Sunday morning would come around, and Tony was able to do that. But it wasn't until much later that I never did go with my dad. But when we started talking about going down to Haiti, it was because his uncle was a field director at the Baptist Haiti Mission down in Fermap, Haiti. And so we decided to get a team involved here at our church because they had some different projects that they needed to have completed. There was some construction. It was a lot of the ladies that went, we actually worked in the Christian education department.
Okay.
Because they're, I can't remember the number. I'm probably going to say it wrong. I'm not going to even say the number, but they have many schools all over Haiti.
Okay.
And so at the Christian education department, we were doing things like sending out report cards to their sponsors and, their health updates, health checks, because they were checked by a doctor or a nurse. And so basically we were administration type thing. That's kind of what we did on our very first trip. And then we also, other trips later, we got to meet a Haitian minister named Eddie Sandville. And through him, become affiliated with him and his church, and actually went to another place in Haiti. It wasn't at the Baptist Haiti Mission. We would actually split our time up and just felt a calling to help him. And it was on one mission trip that we weren't sure exactly how we were going to help him. And we all were around a mango tree. Yeah.
We held hands, made a big prayer
circle, and just said, Lord, whatever you have for us to do, we don't know what it is yet.
We think they need a school.
Yeah.
That's what we said.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and that's started that process. And so in that process,
because the Baptist Haiti Mission didn't have schools in that area. So
right.
They were more in the northern and the western
part of Haiti.
Okay.
So we said, you really, that's the future, is to have the school. And we could go on and on and on through the story, but basically that birthed Haiti Hope Mission.
Yes.
Wow.
From there, and then of course Alex
Sowers
does
a fantastic job.
Yeah.
He's the president, leader
of
that.
That was the birthing part of it. That we just stood around the tree and said,
yeah,
here we are.
So since then we've got the school and
400 kids.
Yeah, that they're going to the school, helping to feed those children, as well. So if anybody wants to sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and you guys can give me the
25,
link.
Yeah, 25.
25 or 30.
25 or 30
$30.
staff.
Oh, no.
Staff.
Oh, I thought you were talking about how much
staff
per month.
and then 400 kids.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it's been just progressively.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the amount that, it's like $25 or $30
$25,
a month.
$30 a month.
Yeah.
It's about $1 a day.
Yeah.
So I'll have you guys send me the link to that.
Yeah,
and then if anybody wants to sponsor a kid through them and through this,
absolutely.
We'll get them linked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, we felt like we're seed planters in that regard.
Yes.
That we went through that sort of, it got bigger than our church could sort of manage. And Alex is a great businessman, does a lot of things. So
yes.
It turned over to him and then he took off with it, made a 501c3. We're not the parent organization here at Little Cape, and we're just contributing to it now.
Yeah.
And then so it's up and on its own, does its own thing.
But even from our other mission trips, we had one, a gal that went with us. She was a young gal, and now she has started her own ministry in Uganda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And if anybody would like to give to that, because of the fact that she is in the process of completing a home for battered women. They bought the property. They started, they basically only need about $7,500 more to complete this project.
Wow.
Yeah. Kayla Corbin.
Kayla
Corbin.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Greater Heights Mission.
Greater Heights Mission.
Yes.
That's amazing.
I'm sitting here trying to think of it.
Yes, Greater Heights Mission. So, and she's done an amazing job. She has blossomed, and I have seen spiritually her growth has been amazing. And she's, been
that seed was
by the
planted
Lord.
through trips, and so you never know. You just never know how
that's so true.
Yeah.
It's been some painful processes.
Yeah.
It's not been, nothing's ever easy because especially in Haiti and third world countries, you're fighting against territorial issues, spiritual battles that you're fighting, as well as poverty and everything else. Your
government,
foreign country, third world. You're fighting all that plus turf battles.
Yeah.
And not gangs. This is spiritual turf battle because.
Yeah. When you enter a community that's Christian versus the communities that are not.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
It's very,
Yeah.
you not only feel it, you see it, it's very obvious, but as soon as you enter it, this is, not of God where we're at right now or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about before too, that sometimes that's extremely hard for some people. We try to prepare them for that in case they would, encounter or would go to those types of places. So that was what we were talking about before. Some people you've got to be prayed up.
Yeah.
Before
And you still
go.
get scared. Let's be honest.
You're human.
We're human. There's still times that you have to say, we're a little concerned here.
Yeah, absolutely.